And for our lecture, we're going to be bringing forth our assistant pastor, Reverend Stephen Clevenger. He's hiding right behind me here. Before we get started with his scripture or lecture, he wanted me to read scripture out of Matthew today. We're going to do Matthew 5, and we're going to start with verse 43. You have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love them which love you, what reward have you? Do not even the publicans the same? And if you salute your brethren only, what do you more than others? Do not even the publicans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father, which is in heaven, is perfect. At this time, please welcome our lecturer this morning, Reverend Stephen Clevenger. Steve.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Steve.
You know, last week we had a Spirit channeled this message of love, the principle of letting the light of your love manifest, that people can see it, recognize it, be touched by it, and maybe have their behavior modified by the love, the energy that you are putting out. Sometimes maybe we just don't take that idea quite as far as we're taught. This scripture this morning, does that make sense? Does that, no, I'm serious now with this. Does it make sense? Love your enemies. Do good to them that persecute. This would mean maybe making you more vulnerable, maybe be taken more advantage of, be hurt more. All of those things. The law cannot be not fulfilled. This law of love is something that, whether it takes all of this life and 100 more lives, that has to be done. We have to achieve. And sometimes maybe we don't reach out far enough. We don't push ourselves enough. Things of the Spirit don't have words that are exact in what they mean. It is kind of abstract in nature. However, that doesn't mean that we can't have an understanding or knowing within ourselves that something is true. This idea in this phrase, infinite intelligence, that spiritualism used instead of the word God all the time. Maybe we could use the word universal consciousness for this, the minds of all creation. And it is aware of all things. And this mind of God, if you will, that we are by nature before we have developed energy, is by nature love itself. And if we're trying to understand spiritual things with a logical mind, we have to realize that the things that we are figuring out with our logical mind are incomplete. They don't take into account this universal consciousness. They don't take into account that all spirit makes up this concept we're calling God. So the only way that we could even attempt to put this into practice would to be in a place where we understand that they're all a spirit being. And to be in a place where you're aware of your own spirituality, your own spiritual awareness. And it is not condoning bad behavior. You see, in this little passage, Jesus didn't say everybody was good. He said on the just and on the unjust, on the evil and on the good. He wasn't condoning any behavior. He just wasn't seeing that as a reality of what people are, but rather perhaps a phase or where they're at in this particular human existence. And if they're going to get out of that, what's our role to play? How does that happen? How do you not be evil or unjust? If that's the nature or the environment or the training or the cross wires in your brain are working for you. You do it by rising above it, by desiring to be different. And before you end up being forced to change, you decide to make that change for the better within yourself. But the power of changing our nature requires a lot more than just our individual willpower. We have to bring it to this universal consciousness. We have to bring it to God. And the thoughts that we have about another person, an addict, whatever, only creates more energy of that in their path. So if we would like to see them self-realized as a human being, as a spirit being, if we would like to see them kind, happy, then we have to see that before it happens. And we have to not see what we don't want. Our responsibility as being a portion of God is that this universal consciousness that is love itself is abiding with us. It is permeating all of creation. It is here. Maybe when you sit here and this blessing of this music, the intention of raising our spirit, can you not feel a little shift, a little sense of presence of this, whatever, warmth, little comfort, peace, coming here and gathering? And that's available all of the time. If we're putting ourselves in a place where we're aware, the spirit within us, spirit without, and within all things. That sounds kind of weird, kind of abstract and hard to understand. At the same time, it's something everybody experiences. You might call it something else, but you've all had that moment spontaneously where you just felt at peace, where everything around you was beautiful. Even if it wasn't something you normally think of as great, it was okay. If there were problems in your life, you weren't aware of it. You were only aware of this feeling of peace and the beauty around it. And let's look at this story. I'm having trouble standing still, not unusual. Bless your enemy. Well, let's take another look at what that might be. What's getting in our way of fulfilling this being the vital love world around us? What are those enemies that are pulling us away from it? So, are things that have happened in your past? Have you developed habits that were maybe self-protective at the time that now show up when situations come into your life? Do you have any repetitive patterns of a certain kind of person that rubs you the wrong way, or a certain situation you keep running out of money, or what, anything that tends to be repetitive? Are those the enemies of the spirit within, trying to manifest, trying to just be happy, to just have that sense of peace? But our opinions about people that don't think like us, whether you're conservative or liberal or that wonderful middle road, how do you look at people that are extreme on the other side of the fence, or extreme about another kind of government, or another way of raising children? What feelings are generated by that? What's inside of us from past life, childhood, traumas in our life, diseases that we deal with, hurts in our body, emotions? Have we been able to bring those things into the light of love and have them have no effect upon what's going on with our life? Those are much more enemies to us as a spirit being realized, being happy, and fulfilling this law. This is a law. We can't not do this. And we keep wanting to look out and make enemies out of other people, conditions, instead of looking at maybe, sometimes we call them those little demons inside of ourselves. These are challenges for us. And if we want something different, if you want not to be upset for 2 days, if you get bad service in a restaurant, you have to change. Because if you got upset, guess what you have created? More bad service. This is just the challenge of being. God is your creator. Period. It doesn't matter what it is. If it goes through your mind, comes out of your mouth, you put that in your future. And if we don't find a way to rise above that old self, how are we going to be the new self? Bless those that curse you. These are the things holding you back. You, the me, you are carrying enemies with us. And if we can recognize we had a chance of doing something about it. But listen, unless you're one of the little ones sitting here, you already know what your issues are. And you still got it. So just knowing it hasn't really fixed everything, has it? But it gives you a chance to be able to. The world of social science, the world of psychiatry, and all of the things that go with it are awakening to this same understanding, not coming from maybe the spirit out, but coming from evidence in what's going on in people's lives. Conscious creator, purposeful creator, instead of whatever shows up in my emotions or mind being what I'm creating. What am I choosing to think? How am I choosing to see another person? How am I choosing to see my life situation? How am I choosing to see the problems in my body? The pain you witnessed in a loved one. Do you want to keep making more of that? Or do you want to see them lifted up? That's our choice. Choice. But the choosing takes some work. And the biggest work is learning. If you want to be purposeful creator, conscious of what you're creating, you have to be tapped in to the universal consciousness that is God. There just seems to be no other real solution. We got our AA friends, the whole concept of reaching out to a higher power. The idea that this presence that I hope you are feeling this very instant, if you just stop and feel the upliftment and peace I hope you felt during that song from the choir. This is the key to being able to choose peace over conflict, whether it is conflict within ourselves or without. This presence is with us constantly. But do we practice the presence of God? Do we have a time set aside before we take on the cares of the day, whether it is 10 seconds or 10 minutes, to do as White Lily taught us, to have a moment where you lose your awareness of your physical body, your physical surroundings, and time. Now, you've had that happen. You've been doing a task and you look up at the clock and 4 hours went by and you hadn't. And while you were doing this task, you were not worried about what someone else was doing. You weren't worried about your finances. You weren't worried about whether your children were on the right path or not. You can do this. To do it intentionally That's where we have to make that choice. You have to bring your problems to God. We can use these old terms. I'm not talking about a person somewhere. I'm talking about what does Jesus telling us is the key to this being part of God. Bless them. Bless your enemy. See the things that are in your life in some positive aspect. What am I going to get out of it? What can I learn? What is this showing me about my past behavior that I have created this in my life today? Be thankful that it showed up so you can do something about it. You know, in retrospect, we do that all the time. 5 years after a divorce, you're over all of the humanness that can go with it. You know, they really weren't that bad of a person. We just went different ways. You can do this. Choose to take some time. Take whatever you want. Feel the presence of God. Start your day with a moment. Get everything beautiful around you. Have the same feeling maybe we can help generate. Go get a glass of water. Drink it down and feel it. Feel the life force in it. Feel it surging through your being. Feel blessed by it. Take a breath. Be thankful you don't have COPD. Be thankful. It's pleasant. If you stop and do it, it is pleasant to breathe. And now just intend that it is the Holy Breath. The breath that is the energy of this universal consciousness, this infinite intelligence, this presence with us that loves us and knows every absolute thing about us and in our life. Waiting, just waiting for us to reach out, for us to bring our problems, the things we have made enemies, the things we carry as burdens, to bring it to their feet. And the process of allowing, having these emissaries that walk by our side, that not a day goes by that they do not intercede in some way by giving you a feeling or a thought, or even changing the circumstances around you, to give you an opportunity to make that choice. Am I going to bless this or curse it? Am I going to make more problems, or am I going to bring it in to the light of love? What could be more pleasant than carrying this feeling of peace that you might have in a gathering like this into every moment of your day? This is a chapter. It's not telling us to accept bad behavior. It's telling us to take bad behavior and see it coming from another child of God, a part of ourselves, that we might truly be this light generated by the love of God.
Thank you, Steve.